My friend Jake wasn't the kind of guy who spooked easily. Growing up in rural Montana in the early 90s, he was used to hard work fixing fences, hauling hay, and doing odd construction jobs for extra cash. His hands were rough from labor by the time he was 16, and he took pride in being able to handle himself. But there was one job, one night, that changed him. He doesn't talk about it much, but when he does, his voice drops low, like he's afraid something might still be listening. It started in the fall season. Jake was a sophomore, saving up for a beat-up truck he'd had his eye on. When his usual contractor, a guy named Roy, offered him a solo gig, good pay for a day's work, he didn't hesitate. The job was simple. Got an old cabin deep in the woods, about 30 miles outside of town. Roy explained it was a flip some out-of-state buyer wanted it stripped to the studs. Jake had done demo work before, so he agreed. Roy picked him up at dawn, the truck rattling down dirt roads that got narrower and rougher the farther they went. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun was just breaking over the trees. The place was isolated. No neighbors, no roads, just endless pines and scrubland. The cabin itself was a relic, weathered logs, a sagging porch, windows so grimy they looked black. Inside, it was worse. Dust-choked air, warped wood paneling, and a smell like mildew and something sharper, like old meat. Roy handed him a crowbar, a sledgehammer, and a box of trash bags. "Gut everything," he said. "Flooring, cabinets, even the damn sink. I'll be back by sundown." Then he was gone, leaving Jake alone in the woods. Jake didn't hesitate. To him, it was just another part of the job. Jake tore into the walls, pried up floorboards, smashed the rotting kitchen counter to splinters. The radio he'd brought crackled with static, barely picking up a country station. By noon, the place was half demolished, dust floating in the shafts of light. He took a break, sitting on the porch with a jug of warm water and a bag of pretzels. That's when he noticed how quiet it was. No birds, no wind, just a heavy, waiting stillness. He shook it off and went back to work. But as the afternoon dragged on, the light fading, the cabin felt different. The air got colder, even though it was only early evening. By 6:30 p.m., the sun was gone. Jake flicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the dust. He was nearly done, just the bathroom left. That's when he felt it. A vibration under his boots, like something heavy moving outside. He froze, listened. Nothing. Then the radio died. The sudden silence was worse than the static. Jake's pulse kicked up. He told himself it was just the battery. But then, a creak. Not from the cabin. From inside the cabin, like someone stepping on a loose board. His breath hitched. "Hello?" he called, voice too loud in the empty space. No answer. He gripped the crowbar tighter and moved toward the sound. The flashlight beam shook. That's when he saw it, a shadow, just for a second, shifting in the hallway. Too tall, too still. Jake's blood turned to ice. He backed up, heart hammering. "Who's there?" he demanded, voice rough. Nothing moved, but he knew something was in there with him. He bolted for the porch, slamming the door behind him. Outside was too cold. It was pitch black now, the trees pressing in. No moon, no stars, just dark. He crouched on the steps, crowbar raised, ears straining. Minutes crawled by. Then another creak. Inside, something was moving. Deliberate. Slow. Jake's hands shook. He considered bolting into the woods, but something about felt wrong. Roy's truck was his only way out, his lifeline. So he stayed, teeth chattering from the cold and fear, silently begging for the Roy to come. Then, just past 12:30 a.m., Roy's truck skidded to a stop, beams cutting through the dark. Roy jumped out, face pale. "Jesus, kid, you okay?" "I got held up. Couldn't call." Jake didn't care about excuses. He just shoved past him, throwing his tools in the truck bed. "We're leaving. Now." Roy kept pressing him with questions, asking what had happened, but Jake remained silent, unable to form the words. As Roy's tone grew more aggressive, Jake finally snapped. "We have to leave now." Later, on the drive back, Jake told him what happened. Roy just shook his head. "Place has been empty for years," he muttered, but he didn't sound convinced. Jake never went back. Not to that cabin, not to any job deep in the woods without proper backup, supplies, and a solid exit plan. Because some things, some feelings stick with you. Whatever had been lurking in that cabin with him that night, Jake was certain there was someone in the dark. He swore to never work alone in places like that again. I never imagined something like this could happen to me in the house I had lived in for years. My family's home sat tucked away in northern Georgia, an old property surrounded by thick woods that stretched for miles. The kind of place where the nights were so dark. We'd lived there for years, without any trouble. The house stood at the edge of the deep forest. I loved it there. I loved the solitude, the connection to nature. I had always felt safe in that house. My family had lived there for generations, and it had become a part of me. My husband worked long shifts, and when he was away, it was just me and my cousin, who had moved in to attend a nearby college. We had a simple routine. She worked nights, and I worked mornings. My days were spent alone, but I never minded. The house was quiet, comforting, and familiar. I thought I knew it better than anyone else. But slowly, things started changing. It began with small, unexplainable moments, things that seemed out of place. The first encounter happened one evening when I was loading items into my car. I had just finished organizing some things and was preparing to make a trip to the store. As I stood by the trunk, I noticed a brown van parked across the rural road. It had no back windows, and the way it sat there, idle, felt wrong. I didn't know why, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe it was someone passing through, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The man inside the van caught my eye. He had on a dark Giants baseball cap, pulled low, covering his face. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me. Then, he made some odd noises, like he was trying to get my attention. I couldn't quite place them, almost like grunts or growls. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he was just some weird guy. I flipped him off, turned my back, and went about my business, dismissing the incident as just another oddity of living in a rural area. But when I got in my car and started driving to my friend's house a few hours later, I realized something strange. The brown van was following me. At first, I told myself it was just a coincidence, but the van kept following, turning down every winding back road I took. My heart began to race. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as I turned down another road, hoping to lose him. I didn't dare look back. Eventually, I found myself outside my father-in-law's house. I pulled over, breathing hard, thinking that if the man tried anything, I could run inside for safety. I glanced into my rearview mirror, only to see the van slowly drive by. And then, as if it wasn't enough, the man locked eyes with me. It was a look I will never forget, a cold, emotionless stare that seemed to pierce through me. He raised his hand and mimicked a gun with his fingers. "Bang," he mouthed, and then he sped off into the night. I sat there, frozen, unsure of what to do. My mind raced, replaying the encounter over and over. It didn't make sense. Who was this man? What did he want? Why had he followed me? The next few days felt like a blur. I tried to push the whole thing out of my mind, telling myself it was nothing. I began to notice other things. It was starting to feel more like something or someone was waiting, watching. I had a constant, nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach that wouldn't go away. And then it happened again. One evening, around 10 p.m., I was sitting in the living room when I heard it, the sound of someone violently jiggling the front doorknob. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze, barely breathing, straining to listen. My cousin was supposed to be home soon, but I knew something wasn't right. The knob shook harder, and then there were 3 loud bangs, each one more forceful than the last on the door that connected the kitchen to the garage. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body was frozen with fear. I stood up slowly, trying to control the panic rising in my chest, and walked to the door. I peered through the peephole, but saw nothing. No one was there. I checked the windows, the yard, still nothing. Just the dark night outside, stretching endlessly. I called my cousin, and I explained what had happened. She assured me she was on her way home from work, but something didn't sit right. It didn't end there. That night, as I was trying to calm myself, there came another series of bangs, this time on the garage door. The knob shook again, more violently this time, and my heart nearly stopped. I ran to the phone, dialing for the police, but I wasn't sure what I would tell them. How do you explain the feeling that something is in the house with you when you can't see it? When the police arrived, they found the locked garage door wide open, but there was no one inside. The police didn't know what to make of it. They assured me we will look into it. A few days later, I caught sight of him standing just outside my house on the roadside. The same brown van. The same man in the dark baseball cap, staring at my home. When he saw me watching him, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was twisted, almost like a sinister grin. I turned away quickly, my stomach churning. I was frozen in place, terror flooding my veins. "Get out of here!" I screamed, my voice breaking. I ran to my husband, yelling at him to go outside to confront the man. But when I turned back to the window, the man was gone. These series of encounters made me feel sick to my stomach. No matter how much we informed the authorities, nothing ever happened. The authorities offered no real help, no explanations, and certainly no solutions. It was as if we were invisible, and our fears didn't matter. My family grew more and more worried as the days went by. We sold the house soon after. The house that I had loved, the house where I had felt so safe. We moved to a different state. We left everything behind except the feeling. Some things you can't escape. That happened 2 years back. I've always been a night walker. There's something about the stillness of the early morning hours. My route never changed. A quiet stretch of rural Georgia roads, past the empty park and along the tree line. I never carried more than my keys and a pocket knife. Never needed to. Most of the time, I would leave my house before the sun had even begun to rise, taking my usual route down the narrow, winding roads toward the edge of the woods. The first incident happened about a year ago, on one of those routine early morning walks. It was a brisk morning, the air sharp with the bite of cool autumn. I had my earphones in, the soft sound of music guiding me through the darkness, when I approached a narrow trail that veered off into the forest. The trail was unlit, a shadowy path that led deeper into the woods. As I neared the trailhead, something caught my eye. A faint light bobbed up ahead. Someone was moving through the trees. I froze for a moment, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. A figure emerged from the shadows, a man, tall and imposing. He was accompanied by a massive German shepherd that padded along beside him. The man didn't say a word. He just moved steadily forward. For a moment, I thought it was just someone out on a late-night walk like me. But as he got closer, I noticed something odd. He was speaking. He was talking to someone on the phone, but I didn't think much of it at first. I turned to continue my walk, trying to give the man some space. But then, just as I was about to take step, the man barked out, "Hey you, police here. Take your earphones out and stop walking away." I stopped dead in my tracks, the words ringing in my ears. I slowly pulled the earphones out, confused and uneasy. He hadn't shown me any identification, hadn't given me any reason to believe he was truly law enforcement. "Are you just walking through here?" he asked too harshly, as though I were doing something wrong. He stepped closer, his face still half obscured by shadows. The flashlight was now aimed directly at me, blinding me for a moment. "How long have you been in the area? Have you seen a girl, maybe around 12 or 13, walking by here tonight?" I didn't know what to say. I'd never seen anyone, especially not a girl, walking around in the woods at this hour. It didn't make sense. But I could tell the man wasn't asking for information, like someone conducting a casual inquiry. He was demanding answers, his posture rigid and tense. The way he didn't back off, that made me feel uneasy. "But no badge. No ID." "No, I haven't seen anyone," I replied. "I've just been walking." The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stood there for a moment. Then, without saying another word, he turned and began walking back toward the trees. I stood there for a while, my pulse still racing. The whole exchange had been strange. There had been no mention of a missing person in the local news. No police reports about a lost girl in the woods. He didn't seem like the kind of person. Later, a couple of months went by, and the incident slowly faded from my mind. I returned to my walks, though I was more cautious now, more aware of my surroundings. But then, one night, something happened that would change everything. It was another quiet night, the kind I had grown accustomed to. I was standing near a small park on the edge of town, waiting for a break in the clouds so I could see better. The park was eerily still. Everything was silent. Too silent. It was then that I realized something. There was a figure standing just a few feet in front of me, barely visible in the dark. I could just make out the silhouette of a person, standing perfectly still, watching me. I couldn't see his face. Something told me that I shouldn't engage, that I should just walk away. I took a step back, then another, trying not to make a sound. But just as I turned to leave, I heard the crunch of footsteps behind me. I didn't look back. I kept walking, picking up the pace, my nerves completely shot. I didn't look back again until I was nearly home. When I did, I saw the man again. He was following me. He was dressed in a hooded sweatshirt. My pace quickened, but so did his. He was matching my every step, staying close behind. Finally, as the distance between us narrowed to only a few feet, I broke into a full sprint. I didn't stop until I was safely inside my front door, locked behind me. My breath came in short gasps, my heart still racing. I dared to peek through the curtains, but I didn't see him anymore. That was the last time I ever walked alone in the dark. I stopped walking alone at night after that. It was one of the scariest, most chilling encounters I've ever experienced, and I'm still haunted by it. Thank God it never happened to me again.